Imagine waking up every day, floating inside a metal capsule, knowing that Earth is right there, visible through a small window, but you can't go back. Your mission was supposed to last a few weeks, yet here you are months later with no clear way home. The spacecraft that brought you here is now a ticking time bomb of malfunctions, and every passing day increases the risks of staying stranded. This isn't a Hollywood science fiction thriller. This is real. This is the story of NASA astronaut Sunita Williams, who became trapped in space for nearly 9 months. Sunita Williams is no stranger to space. She's one of NASA's most experienced astronauts, with over 322 days spent in orbit across her previous missions. But nothing, none of her training, none of her experience, could have prepared her for the nightmare that unfolded in 2024. She and fellow astronaut Barry Butch Wilmore were set to make history aboard Boeing's Starliner spacecraft, a vehicle designed to be NASA's next-generation solution for transporting astronauts to and from the International Space Station. Their mission? A straightforward 8-day test flight to validate the Starliner before it was approved for regular crewed flights. But something went horribly wrong. Instead of returning home in a few days, Williams and Wilmore found themselves trapped aboard the ISS, abandoned by the very spacecraft that was supposed to bring them back. How did this happen? What went so wrong that a mission meant to last just over a week turned into 9 months of uncertainty, fear, and survival? Let's unravel this mystery. The launch of Boeing's Starliner on June 5th, 2024 was a moment of pride. A gleaming spacecraft atop a roaring Atlas V rocket, piercing the sky as it lifted 2 veteran astronauts into orbit. For Boeing, this was more than a test flight. It was a redemption arc. For NASA, a key milestone in diversifying its access to space. Williams and Wilmore felt the familiar pressure against their chests as the engines ignited, the rattling of the capsule, the countdown to zero-G. Everything appeared nominal. The spacecraft docked smoothly with the ISS. They had arrived. Mission control exhaled. But behind the scenes, data streams were already showing anomalies. Engineers noticed fluctuating helium pressure levels. At first, it was dismissed as sensor drift, but it wasn't. Within hours, multiple helium leaks were confirmed, small but persistent. Helium isn't just gas. It's the bloodline of the propulsion system. Without it, the thrusters can't fire, can't stabilize the ship, can't guide it home. Then came the real shock. 5 out of the 28 reaction control thrusters failed during test firings. Engineers ran simulations. The results were terrifying. If the Starliner attempted re-entry in this state, it could spin uncontrollably, miss its descent angle, or burn up on re-entry. NASA was stuck. Do they risk a high failure return or keep the astronauts on board the ISS indefinitely? They chose the latter, a decision no one realized would come to define an entire chapter of modern space history. As days passed, a new kind of silence took hold. Not the silence of space, but of waiting. Waiting without a timeline. Williams and Wilmore weren't supposed to be part of long-term ISS operations. They had no tailored supplies, no updated medical plans, no defined roles. And yet, now they were unofficial crew. The ISS has systems to support human life, yes, but not systems to support the uncertainty of rescue. The psychological toll began quietly. The astronauts held themselves together through routine, exercise, daily logs, assisting with onboard research. But every night, in the stillness of orbit, the reality pressed harder. They were stuck. There was no concrete plan for when or how they'd return. Ground control updates were technical, procedural, but vague. Engineers spoke of patching software, of retrying thrusters, of more tests. but confidence faded. Meanwhile, every day their bodies weakened in microgravity. Bone density dropped. Muscle mass shrank. The body forgets Earth when it floats too long in space. And still, every morning, Earth hung outside the window like a dream that kept slipping out of reach. Back on Earth, the question became urgent. How do you rescue astronauts in space when the vehicle that brought them there can't bring them back? Starliner was declared unfit for re-entry. The only remaining option was SpaceX's Crew Dragon, but it wasn't designed as a rescue vessel. It was already earmarked for a different mission, not configured for unplanned pickups. NASA and SpaceX went into overdrive. Engineers had to adapt Crew Dragon support systems to carry 4 astronauts on a ride meant for 2. Life support would be strained. Mass distribution recalculated. Emergency abort scenarios reprogrammed. There could be no surprises. They ran failure simulations. Hundreds. What if Dragon failed to dock? What if atmospheric heating exceeded design tolerance? What if one of the stranded astronauts became medically unfit during descent? Through each test, one theme emerged. It was risky, but possible. So they launched. On March 6, 2025, the Falcon 9 cut through the clouds, the capsule carrying 2 astronauts bound for the ISS and 2 empty seats, the lifeboat seats. For Williams and Wilmore, watching approach was surreal. The white capsule drifting against the backdrop of Earth. It looked peaceful, but it carried the weight of survival. Inside the ISS, final checks were tense. One mistake in pressure seals or docking sequence could jeopardize everything. But the systems clicked. The airlock hissed. Dragon was home. But the hardest part was still ahead. March 8, 2025. After 9 long months, it was time. Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore boarded Crew Dragon. The interior was sterile white, humming softly. Outside, the void of space. Inside, hearts pounding. As the ISS receded behind them, there was a quiet sense of gratitude and fear. The re-entry began. The capsule detached and drifted free, turning to face Earth. Then it began to fall at 17,500 miles per hour, straight into the atmosphere. Friction built fast. Plasma lit the windows in a burning glow. The outside shell heated to over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The cabin creaked. The metal groaned. Inside, Sunita clenched the armrest. The G-forces hit hard. 9 months in weightlessness made every jolt unbearable. Her heartbeat was loud. Her muscles screamed. Still, she held on. And then radio silence. For 10 long minutes, Mission Control lost all contact. It's expected, but that doesn't make it easier. The world waited. Then, finally, parachutes deployed. The tension shattered. The capsule slowed its descent, swaying over the Atlantic. At 5:32 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Crew Dragon touched the sea. A door opened. Cool air rushed in. She was home. NASA immediately launched a review. Boeing faced scrutiny like never before. The Starliner had failed, not just in parts, but in mission planning execution. But the astronauts had made it back. Sunita's body needed months of rehab, muscle reconditioning, balance training. But the toughest repair wasn't physical. It was psychological. Surviving space isn't about floating. It's about enduring stillness, silence, and the unknown. In her first words post-mission, she smiled and said, "Space is unpredictable. But that's why we go. Not because it's easy. Because we're not done learning." The mission, meant to last 8 days, became one of the longest unintended odysseys in NASA's history. And a powerful reminder, no matter how far we go, the human will survive always finds a way back. This wasn't the first time an astronaut got stranded in space, and it won't be the last. Subscribe for more real-life space mysteries.